What's going on, fantasy football fans? I'm your host, Hussein the Brain, and you're watching The Couch. These are my NFL DFS picks for week 1. I've been doing these DFS videos for a few years now, and this year I'm going to be more focused on GPPs, contrarian picks, and super cheap players. I will still be talking about chalk and cash games, but before I'd be rambling on and on about 40, 50 players, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do. So this year, hopefully it'll be a little bit different. Who knows? Maybe I'll keep rambling on about a bunch of players, but we're going to try to do things a little bit differently. Let's start off with the quarterbacks from the highest price to the lowest, and I like to start with Lamar Jackson. I think he would be more owned, but turns out he probably isn't going to be that owned according to ownership projections. And I think it's because of the line. It's going to be a slow-paced game. Ravens defense should ball out, and the Ravens should run the ball a little bit. And I guess that's why a lot of people are off on Lamar Jackson. Still not my favorite quarterback, but 6,000 going against the Dolphins, which is slated to be the worst team this year. A lot of people say they're tanking for Tua. Well, they're definitely tanking for something. I think that's pretty obvious. And here's another gem here, and that's Phillip Rivers at 5,900, super contrarian pick. I think it's just because he's not the sexy pick here. It's just no one's really talking about him, and he's really good, really reliable. He's going to need to throw you that 300 plus yards or throw several touchdowns to really be that GPP pick that we want. But he's got a lot of weapons. He can throw to his running backs. He can throw to Big Mike Williams. He can throw to Keenan Allen. And, of course, Hunter Henry, who we haven't seen play in quite a while, but should be really good. He is going against the Colts. Don't know if the Colts can keep up with the Chargers to make this a shootout, but nonetheless, Phillip Rivers, great passer. Then we have Jimmy Garoppolo at 5,800. And I was pretty high on him, but turns out a lot of people are targeting this Bucs-Niners game. Both defenses are not that well. And what's kind of cool about Jimmy Garoppolo is that his price is not too expensive, and you can pair him up. You can stack him with Tevin Coleman, Breda, Kittle, or one of the 3 wide receivers, including guys like Pettis or Marquise Goodwin. Really can go any way because Shanahan loves to use the running backs in the pass game. So don't be afraid to do more of a contrarian stack, because it's not necessarily about picking contrarian players all the time, but the actual specific goal, this is just a little nuance, little detail, is to pick a contrarian lineup. So picking Jimmy G and, let's say, Breda may not be that popular of a stack, right? Because running backs usually don't score receiving touchdowns, but it can definitely happen in this game, especially under Kyle Shanahan. Now, I found a couple gems here, and one is Kirk Cousins, super sleeper. Wow, look at that. I didn't even notice that. 32nd ranked, their opponent, the Falcons. If Julio's playing, Matt Ryan's playing, this could be a sneaky shootout here, and a lot of people just not on Kirk Cousins, and that's probably because he didn't have a good year last year. A lot of high hopes, and then he was sort of a bust in season long and pretty much a bust in DFS as well. Just didn't work out. But this is a new year, second year under this system. One big thing I'm going to talk about here is the running backs. Both running backs, Madison and Dalvin Cook, can catch. And so that's added bonus for Kirk Cousins. If those running backs score, which they should, hopefully it's a receiving touchdown to make that Kirk Cousins pick really pan out. And of course, he has Thielen and Diggs, and he has a couple tight ends this year in Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith. And then we have Nick Foles. No one's talking about this guy. I'm always targeting quarterbacks playing against Patrick Mahomes, and it has sort of worked out. A lot of top 5, top 4 finishes for quarterbacks that week, sometimes top 3, not usually top, the absolute best quarterback. This year, this week, it might be different. We haven't really seen Nick Foles. The price is super cheap. You can stack him with a lot of different types of players. I mean, everyone's going for Westbrook, but we'll get into that later. I think he's going to be really good, man, and a really good target this week. I guess just not the sexy pick. I guess that's what's going on here. This video is sponsored by fansharesports.com. It has lots of data on who's going to be contrarian picks coming up this week, who's going to be chalk. It scours the internet, the radio stations, podcasts, and players that are being overhyped. It lets you know, and it comes up with ownership percentages as well as a lot of other data. It's super useful, and they actually helped me come up with my picks for this week. So make sure to go and check out fansharesports.com. Sign up and get a FanShare Pro subscription today. Get 30% off when you use promo code Couch. Again, that's fansharesports.com, or just follow the link below in the description. Use promo code Couch to save 30% off. By the way, this 30% promotion will only last until Sunday. Fanshare Sports actually helped me come up with a lot of these quarterbacks for this video. Lamar Jackson, Phillip Rivers, Jimmy Garoppolo, who's projected to be more owned than I thought. Kirk Cousins, absolute gem. Foles, absolute gem. And then it's showing that Jacoby Brissett is actually a great punt with his price, but super chalk, could be one of the most owned quarterbacks, because a lot of people are looking for punts and chalk, and some people think Jacoby Brissett is a decent quarterback. I'm actually going to avoid Jacoby Brissett this week. Don't feel like, even though he's super cheap, I'd probably rather pay another $1,000 and just get me a quarterback that I can rely on a little bit more, a quarterback that maybe has more upside. For running backs, we have Todd Gurley, price super cheap. No one's really talking about him. It's a bit weird, and I don't like Todd Gurley in season long. Like I always said that, but if he's healthy and should get a full workload week 1, this is DFS. This is different. Maybe not in week 13. Like maybe we can't rely on Todd Gurley then if he's still healthy. But right now at this price point, how do you not pick him? And he should be a bit contrarian as well. Yeah, I absolutely like him. I'm just a bit surprised that his price isn't extremely expensive and no one's really talking about him. And then we're going to go over a lot. We're going to skip a lot of names here. We have Dalvin Cook, who's super chalk this week, by the way. Super cheap, super chalk, should be good. And another super chalk player is Chris Carson, pretty cheap, has a great matchup against the Bengals. And of course, Dalvin Cook is playing the Falcons. So let's move it along here. I think one interesting pick right here is you can go with Tevin Coleman, who's priced at $5,000. And to make your lineup a bit more contrarian, you can even pick both Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida. And of course, there's talks about both of them are great starts this week. Everyone's saying that in season long, and everyone knows they have great matchups and so on, and they will be picked. But I don't know if people are bold enough to really pick both of them. I am. I will be picking both of them in a couple of lineups, and that's just a tip from me to you to make your lineups a little bit more unique without necessarily picking a contrarian player. No one's gonna do that, are they? Pick two from the same? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't see a lot of people doing it. People don't talk about it because it is bold. I see both running backs going off against the Buccaneers. And then at 3,600, we have Singletary. I'm just a huge fan of his, and of course, could be a three-headed monster. 3,600 going against the Jets. I get it, but I think Singletary should be the lead head of the three-headed monster. I do see him getting at least 13 to 15 touches. He's super talented, and he'll probably end up earning more touches later on. Might be this game when he can prove it. No shady there. Price is super cheap. He should return value at the very least. And one more player I did want to talk about is Justin Jackson, a guy who's just not getting much hype. Eckler is getting a lot of hype. Eckler is chalk. Justin Jackson is not. And the price point, like, it's much more attractive, so I don't really get it. Of course, there's more risk. Eckler catches the ball well. He is the starter, but I do see Justin Jackson getting about 40% of the work, getting about 40% of the snaps and touches, and Eckler getting 60%. So that works out with the price, and I'm talking more so for GPP. I guess he's not bad in cash, but I probably wouldn't do it. Like, the floor isn't great, okay, but the upside is definitely there. The price is definitely there. Super cheap. And Fanshare Sports agrees with me. Not too chalky for Justin Jackson, but super chalky for Eckler. Oh, I have two more huge punts. And one of them I think is going to be owned maybe in a little bit, just a little bit. And the other not at all. I'm trying to find, okay. Ty Montgomery right here. Le'Veon Bell's supposed to be eased in. I'm not really believing it, but just in case the reports are somewhat true, you got Ty Montgomery here. He's almost minimum price, $3,200 going against the Bills. Home game, which doesn't make a huge difference, but it is a home game. Bell's supposed to be eased in a little bit, and Ty Montgomery also returned, so could be a nice contrarian stack. When I say contrarian stack, a stack that not a lot of people will have. If you want to go with the Jets D and then start Ty Montgomery as well, pick him. If Ty Montgomery returns a punt or kick, boom, you get 6 points there and 6 points there. So it is a stack when you get a defense/special teams and their return man. And it's pretty cheap. I think he'll see some carries. He'll see some targets. But actually, I'm way more excited about this one. And no one's going to own Gus Edwards. Now, if you believe the Ravens are going to whoop the Dolphins' butt, this is a good pick. This is an incredible punt. Super cheap. And man, Gus Edwards is super talented. We're going to really need a touchdown for this to work, but it can happen. All three running backs are going to split. Justice Hill will see probably at least 7 touches. Mark Ingram will probably see around 14 to 17 touches. And then Gus Edwards could see another 7 or so touches. We don't know, but if the Ravens have the lead, why would you run Mark Ingram 20-25 times? We know he has injury history. He's getting up there in age. He's 29 years old, I think. Why not give Justice Hill a few touches, see what he can do? Why not give Gus Bus some touches? And that way everyone stays fresh and healthy throughout the season. I'm just really proud I found this pick, but who knows, maybe it won't work. But $3,100, I think you can afford him. Moving on to wide receiver, there's a lot of players to pick from, a lot of studs, but we'll focus more on talking about chalk and super cheap plays. First of all, the 2 chalk plays are going to be Godwin and Westbrook. Were they around 40 something, 4,800, 4,600 I think for Westbrook? Yeah, 4,800 for Westbrook. That is super cheap, great matchup, everything's beautiful. Just keep in mind he is chalk. Okay to play in GPP, but if you do, make sure you throw in a few contrarian picks to offset this amount of chalk we're talking about here. We're talking super chalk here. And Chris Godwin, absolutely love him this week. I'm starting him in season long. 6,200, not too expensive. Great matchup. The defense, Niners defense, could focus on stopping Mike Evans. Chris Godwin should have a ton of opportunity. I have this guy getting 100 catches this year. Should be an absolute beast if that Bucs O-line can do some things. And then we talked a little bit about the Vikings-Falcons game. I just wanted to say that you probably don't want to pick both Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, but picking one of those two may be a good idea. Julio Jones cannot be stopped one-on-one, so if they do double him, I love Calvin Ridley. Now, if Xavier Rhodes is going to shadow him and not double him, then Julio Jones is going to go off. I just have a feeling one of the two will do really well, but both won't do well. So just wanted to put that out there. If you have 10 lineups, maybe you have Julio Jones in one, and then you have Calvin Ridley in another, but neither ever have both in one. I don't know. If both do well, then that would have looked stupid, me saying that. It's all good. Stephon Diggs is questionable, and we all know when a player is questionable, they are less owned. And, ooh, super cheap one right here. Not a player I'm necessarily high on, but in season long. I mean, I'm not high on this season, but Curtis Samuel priced at 4,200. Panthers will throw the ball a little bit, right? Going against the Rams. This should be a high-scoring game, possibly. But that's super cheap. Great value right there. But keep in mind, Curtis Samuel is also super chalk. Could be one of the most owned wide receivers after Godwin and Westbrook. This one, You can make fun of me on this one. It's fine. DK Metcalf. I have no other explanation, but other than I got a gut feeling. I'm actually very confident in DK Metcalf this year, just not so much in his health. So I feel like if he's healthy, he can ball out with Russell Wilson. This is a great duo. Russell Wilson can buy time, and he can throw the deep ball very well. If these guys can get on the same page, a lot of good things can happen. And man, I have a good gut feeling. That's really all it is. The price is cheap. You might as well have a little bit of stock in Metcalf this week in DFS if you're having multiple lineups. If you're the type of guy who only submits one lineup, I get it if you want to avoid Metcalf. Now let's talk about some super cheap wide receivers and punts. Trey Quinn, where you at? Where you at, homie? All right, there you are. 3,400. Super cheap. I don't think anyone's going to be picking him going against the Eagles. Washington's going to have to throw the ball. Eagles not so good against the slot receivers. At least that's what I'm thinking will happen this year. Trey Quinn, he might do some things. He also returns. That's a plus, right? Even though he's probably not going to get that return touchdown. It's still a plus. He'll get some targets. Super cheap. Washington will be playing from behind that game. Some more non-hype players. This is a non-hype player right here. Not a lot of confidence though. Like, can this guy score? I don't know. He is fast. He's quick. He's got big playability. He's just not the best receiver. Like, obviously Hunter Henry, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen are better and safer than Travis Benjamin, but hey, it could be a flyer. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even talked about this guy, but he's the least favorite out of the wide receivers I'm talking about. But wanted to mention him because he's really slept on. And then at 3,100 we have Chris Conley. And so if you do want to pick Nick Foles, maybe you pick a guy like Chris Conley. And imagine all this cap space you're saving. Nick Foles, fairly cheap. Chris Conley, basically minimum price. Could be the number 2 receiver there on the Jaguars. Could be a bit of a shootout. Is this, dare I say, revenge game against the Chiefs? I don't know. I don't think the revenge script follows. Maybe Chris Conley thinks so though, and so that might equal more fantasy points. Nonetheless, let's stop joking, guys. Look, 3,100 could be a shootout. Nick Foles gonna have to throw the ball. Could be good. Could be a good pick. Love it. And Miles Boykin at 3,000. Other than Lamar Jackson and the Ravens D being high price, all these Ravens are super cheap. And I'm not going to be able to even find him, so I'll just search. Miles Boykin could be the number 1 wide receiver on the Ravens. Super cheap. If he gets 1 or 2 big plays, he'll definitely pan out for you with that cheap price. Not much risk there. And let's go on to the tight ends. Kittle at 6,600. Really no need to talk about him. Great matchup. I think the best real-life tight end right now in fantasy football. My number 1 tight end in Dynasty. And easily a top 2 tight end this week. Price reflects that, though. What do we got? Zach Ertz is pretty safe. He should have a great game. I really love O.J. Howard. I think when it comes to upside, he has the most upside this week out of any tight end. His price isn't that expensive. For a cash game, I don't know. Maybe you save money on tight ends because it is a crapshoot. Tight ends is almost always a crapshoot. So in cash games, maybe you save. But in GPP, you can spend up on O.J. Howard. He hasn't played in a while, so recency bias does play into this. Maybe some DFS players are like, I don't know if I want to really play him. He hasn't beasted in so long. So I do like him, though. 5,000. Seems expensive, but it's really not. And then Njoku, I think this one's a little bit of he's just not hyped up. He can slip through the cracks because you have all these big stud tight ends like Ertz and Kittle and Kelsey and Howard who are priced way more expensive. And then you have those cheap, amazing plays that we'll get to later. And I think Njoku is going to slip through the cracks. 3,700, not too expensive, not too cheap, on a good team that should score. And I'm pretty high on Njoku this year as well in season long. This matchup is okay against the Titans. I just feel like it's it's really, that's what it is. His price and just where he is. I feel like when you're going through the salary cap, a lot of people are going to look up or look down and just kind of avoid Njoku. Like, I'd rather, people are going to be looking at Hunter Henry or cheaper players, or the top three, the big three or big four tight ends, if you want to include Howard. Moving on, 3,200. Don't like Greg Olsen, but if he's healthy, man, that's super cheap. Don't like him in season long, but this one, Panthers could pass the ball a little bit. Could be a sneaky shootout. And then probably my favorite tight end just overall is got to be Mark Andrews, priced at 3,000, another Raven. You just cannot beat this value. Another tight end I wanted to mention really quick is Waller, the Raiders tight end, but he does play Monday Night Football, so he's not in the main slate, although I do like him. And then defenses, I think... Let's start off with the cheapest one. I think the best punt is the Bengals D, because I feel like this shouldn't be a too high scoring game and it's super risky, but I don't even think the Bengals will be the worst scoring defense this week. They may not even be bottom 10 because of just how crazy it is and unpredictable. And there's a lot of games like the Bucks D might be worse. Giants D could be good. They could be worse. There's just so Dolphins D could be worse. Like, you just don't know. Washington D could be worse just because the team is so bad. I like the defensive players. Colts D, you just, Falcons D, like there's just so many, you just don't know with all this uncertainty that sometimes if you pick the Bengals D, you'll be saving like $1,500 in the salary cap, and that's pretty good. That's the difference between a wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 on a team. So that's why they are my favorite punt. I absolutely love it. I don't know what to tell you. Now, I'm not picking them in every one of my lineups or anything like that. I just like the price, and I really do feel like they have a good chance of not being the bottom 10 in fantasy points for defenses week 1. 3,000, we have the Chargers. I feel like this is a good cash game pick. Like, it's safe, it's okay, it's priced okay. I'd rather go a little bit more risky with the Bills D. See what they have. They have some good pieces, same price. I think more people will pick the Chargers, though. They probably see it being safer and just more trustworthy. Seahawks, we went over, have a great matchup against the Bengals at 3,100. And then these two defenses, they really are worth paying up for. Eagles at 3,600 going against Washington. Washington's offense looks bad. They don't have any wide receivers. Jordan Reed is in concussion protocol. He might play. We'll see tomorrow if he gets the go. They just have a bad team. Dwayne Haskins isn't starting, and Case Keenum is starting. Eagles D is worth it. And then the Ravens D is also worth it as well. 3,800 going against the Dolphins. I would say out of the two, Ravens and Eagles, I think Eagles would be safer and they're more trustworthy and better value, just because Washington, I don't think they're going to do well. The Ravens have maybe more upside, but going against Fitzmagic, I'm a little scared. Fitzmagic does some things from time to time. Make sure you guys do visit fansharesports.com. Go get you a FanShare Pro subscription and use promo code COUCH to save 30% off. And that deal does end Sunday, so please go get it. It really helps support this channel and helps me keep making videos like this one. If you enjoyed this video, hit it with a thumbs up. If you didn't, hit it with a thumbs down. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. Also, we have a second YouTube channel, Fantasy Couch Podcast. Subscribe to that one as well. Watch some of my other videos. There's lots of good content on here, and I'll see you on the next video / live stream.